Okay, today, first thing you should complete is the 12.1 warm-up in GoFormative. It's only 2 problems, so it should not take you more than 10 minutes. After you're done with the warm-up, continue with this video. Okay, so first thing on my screen, just a reminder about the rules that we talked about on Friday. Please make sure you are working the entire period. Don't use your phone. Make sure you are doing what you're supposed to be doing so that you can get a good grade on the practice start test. One of the papers that you picked up today is a calendar for April and part of May. And on this calendar, you can see what we are going to be reviewing each day. And what days we're going to be having quizzes. So this Friday, the 14th, is going to be your first quiz, which is going to be over all the things that we review this week. The next quiz after that is going to be on the 28th, quiz number 2. That's going to be about about all the topics we reviewed this whole 3 weeks. And then on May 8th, there's going to be a test grade, kind of like a little mini practice start test. That's going to count as a test grade. And then your real start test will be on May 10th. So today we are going to be solving equations by hand. And then at the end of the video, we're going to review how we can solve it with decimals. All right, so other thing you picked up today is a packet. Make sure your name is on it. Make sure you do not lose it. And we are going to start on page 1. Page 1 has the 6 steps that you need to remember whenever you are solving equations. And then we're going to work through some of this without using decimals. So I'm going to start with the very simple one, which is the first one. You are going to draw a line through your equal, and we are going to solve this by following this first step. If you have parentheses, distribute, which means multiply. And then multiply the number outside with the numbers inside the parentheses. So 4 times 2, it's 8x, and 4 times negative 10 is negative 40, and the 16 on the other side, I just keep it. Next step says combine like terms, but on the right side, there are no like terms because 8 has an x, but the 40 doesn't. So step 2 doesn't apply. Step 3 says if you have variables on both sides, we don't, so step 3 doesn't apply. Step 4, get rid of the constant. So constant is the number with no x, that's the negative 40. Opposite of minus is plus 40. Cancel it, move it to the other side. Now I'm going to add those two numbers. 16 plus 40 is 56. Bring down the 8x. And then step 5 says get rid of the variable's coefficient. So the 8 is the variable's coefficient. I'm going to divide it on both sides. 8 divided by 8 is 1. So that's why I only have 1x equals, and then I divide these numbers. 56 divided by 8 is 7. We're gonna move on to, let's see, which ones I want to do. I'm gonna move on to number 2. So the one in the center. This one. I'm just gonna solve it on the next screen so I can have more space to write, since I'm writing on my screen with my fingers a little bit hard. So if you have parentheses, distribute. So 4 times 3, 12x. 4 times negative 2, negative 8. Parentheses closed, so those positive 2x's, I'm just going to copy them. And then equals 76 on the other side, I also copy. Step 2 says combine like terms. So this time I do have like terms because I have 2 numbers that have an x. And so that means they're similar, they're like terms. I'm going to add them. 12 plus 2, 14x in total. Bring down the minus 8 and the 76. Now I can start canceling things out. First, the constant, opposite of minus is plus. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides. 76 plus 8 is 84. Bring down the 14x. And then whatever number you have left with the x, it is the number that you divide. And so I'm going to divide that 14 on both sides. I don't know what I'm doing. So right there, divided by 14 on both sides. And so 84 divided by 14, and doing decimals, 84 divided by 14 is 6. We're going to look at one more example as an equation, and then we're going to see some inequalities. So last example I'm going to do for an equation is this third one. But again, I'm going to do it on this screen. Makes it easier to write. And so this one here. And there's a typo in this one, so if you see that plus sign, just cross it out. All right, in this example, we have letters X's on both sides of the line. And so whenever that happens, we first want to move the X's or the letter, whatever letter it is, to one side of the line, one side of the equation. I personally like moving the X that's on the right side. And so in this case, it's a positive 2x. So the opposite of plus is minus. So I'm going to do minus 2x. Cancels. And I move it to the other side. Minus 2x. And so now those two that have an x are going to be subtracted. 6 minus 2 is 4x. I'm going to bring down the 16. I'm going to bring down the 28. Now I can start canceling things out. I want the x by itself. So I have to cancel the 16 first. It's a plus 16, so I'm going to do the opposite, minus 16 on both sides. 28 minus 16 is 12. Bring down the 4x's. Then whatever number is with the x, that's the number you divide on both sides. So you have x equals 12 divided by 4 is 3. X equals 3. All right, this is something that when we first learned it, you guys learned it like in 2-3 weeks. We practiced it for a long, long time. And then you took your test. Because we are doing just a review for STAAR test. I'm going a little fast. And because I'm going to show you how to do it with decimals also. So just a quick review how to solve equations. And then I want to do one more example. On the very last row of this page, you have inequalities. So the difference now is that instead of an equal sign, you have those inequality symbols. And so example that I want to do with you guys is this last one right here. So very similar to equations, we draw a line through the inequality symbol and then we solve it just like we solve an inequality. So I have parentheses in this example, so I'm going to multiply. 3 times 5 is 15, and then 3 times negative x is negative 3x. I'm going to keep the symbol under and then bring down the 7x minus 1. Okay, next we are going to move the variables to one side only. So I have x's on both sides. So minus 7x, and then move it to the other side. And notice I keep it under the other number that has the x so that I don't get confused when I'm going to subtract. The 15, I'm just going to carry it down. And then those two, negative 3 minus 7x is negative 10x. And I bring down the negative 1. Okay. Remember, the goal is to get x by itself. And so if I want to get x by itself, first I'm going to cancel this 15. It's positive, so I'm going to do the opposite, minus 15. Move it to the other side. I have negative 10x greater or equal. Negative 1 minus 15 is negative 16. And in the final step, whatever number is with x, you'll divide it on both sides. And so I get x, and then negative 16 divided by negative 10. It's positive 1.6. All right, so here's the thing with inequalities. If you notice the first 6 steps that I had at the very top, the last step says, if it's an inequality, check to see if you need to flip the symbol. if you divide it or multiply by a negative. So for inequalities, anytime that you divide or multiply by a negative number, your inequality symbol has to be flipped. And so in this case, we divided by a negative 10. So my greater than symbol is going to flip and it is going to become a less than or equal to symbol. So that's the only thing that's different for inequalities at the very end. If you divide by a negative number, you flip your symbol. All right, so if this is stressing you out and confusing you, do not worry. For the STAR test, you get to use decimals. And so I already showed you this for the practice STAR, but I want to show you again in case you forgot, because some of my students have been forgetting. Anytime you have an equation, you can do it with decimals. We can skip all this process right here that we did if we remember how to do it with decimals. So you're still going to have to draw your line through the equal sign to separate the equation into two parts, but then we're going to type it in decimals. So in decimals, in your first line, you're going to type y equals, and then we are going to copy this left side of the equation for parentheses negative 2x plus 9. Then line number 2, I'm going to type y equals again, but now I'm going to copy the right side of that equation, negative 2 3x minus 7. And so it seems like they don't cross, but they do. So you just need to zoom out a little bit, find where they cross, click on it, and your answer is only the first number. So 11 be my answer. Number 2, it's still an equation, so I can draw my line through the equal sign and then type it in decimals. The only thing you have to remember for number 2 is that if you have another letter that is not x, we have to change it to an x, and then decimals will be able to solve it for me. So all those p's, change them to x's. We're going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to clear my screen. Line number 1, y equals, and then I'm going to copy the left side, negative 10x minus 8. Second line, I'm going to type y equals, and then I'm going to copy all of this right side, negative 8, 6x minus 5. And plus 10, 2 plus 4x plus 10. 2 plus 4x. Okay, so again, I have to find where they cross. I'll just scroll around. And the first number is negative 34. So negative 34 is my answer. All right, so the last two problems, or the next two problems on page 2, are not equations, they're inequalities because they have that symbol in the middle. So I can still solve it with decimals. But I want to show you what happens sometimes, not always, but sometimes you don't get your answer right away. And so we're going to change those b's into x's, and we're going to type them just like we did with the equation. So we're going to clear the screen. Y equals, copy the left side, 11x plus 6. Line 2, y equals, copy the right side, 14x plus 3. Again, have to scroll and just kind of find where they intersect. Let's zoom a little bit here so I can make sure they cross right there at 1 and 17. But remember, only the first number is the answer, so just the 1. So if you notice, there's 2 answers that have a 1. And so this can only happen with inequalities because you have symbols. It could be greater than or less than 1. And so this is why I wanted to review how to do it by hand, because sometimes you will need to know how to solve them in order to find the right answer. So here's the original problem. Remember, if you have x's on both sides, you want to move them to one side only. So I'm going to move 14 x's to the other side by subtracting them from both sides. And then when I subtract 11 minus 14, I get negative 3x, bring down the plus 6. But there's no reason or no need to solve this equation anymore. I only wanted to move the x's to one side so that I could see if the number with the x is negative, that means at the end of the problem, I need to divide by a negative. And so that makes the symbol flip. So because it's negative 3, the symbol that's greater than is going to flip and become less than. And so my answer choice should be C. So be really careful whenever you have inequalities. Sometimes there will only be one answer with the number that you're looking for. But if there's two answers, you have to remember to see if you need to flip the symbol. We're going to do the same thing for number 4. I'm going to draw the line through the equal, and we're going to solve it with decimal. So y equals negative x plus 5. And then line 2, y equals 2x minus 7. Smile so you can see where they cross. That's 4. And so in this case, again, there's two answers that have a 4. And so I just need to do the first step to see if I'm gonna have to flip my symbol. So again, there's x's on both sides, so minus 2x cancel, move it to the other side. And then right here, negative 1x minus 2x is negative 3x again. So again, I end up with a negative number with the x. That means I'm gonna flip the symbol from less than to greater than. So my answer again is C. Not always you're gonna have two answers with the number, but if you do, just check to make sure if you need to flip the symbol or not. Right, finally, last two examples, 5 and 6 are multiple choice problems that have answer choices as fractions. And so I want to review this. For number 6, we are going to draw a line through the equal sign and type it in decimals, just like we have been doing for all those examples. Y equals 4x plus 8. Line 2, y equals 3 parentheses negative 2x plus 4. And they cross at 0.4. My answer choices are fractions though, but because 0.4 is not a decimal that never ends, I can type 0.4 in decimals, click on the circle, and it changes it into a fraction, 2/5. So that's my answer. Number 5 is a little different though, so let's look at number 5. Same thing, I'm going to copy those into decimals. So y equals for the first line 2x plus 4 minus 6x. Line 2, y equals 2 negative 5x plus 1. They cross at negative 0.333. So if I type that negative 0.333, and then you click on the little circle, it gives me this fraction, which is not in my answer choices. And so the reason that happens is because 0.333 is a decimal that never ends. It continues 0.3333333. They just round it to the nearest thousand, so they have 3 numbers there. So when that happens, you have to instead type the answer choices. So if I type 2/3, or if it's 2/3 positive, so what a negative number. So if I type negative 1/3 in decimals, negative 1/3, it's 0.3333, which is the number that I wanted. So just be really careful. If it's a decimal that ends like 0.4, you can type 0.4 and change it to a fraction. But if it's a decimal that doesn't end, like 0.3333, then you have to type your answer choices first and see which one gives you the correct decimal. Right, so you are going to complete page 3 only to save time. Now for page 3 with decimal, so you can finish fast. And then you are going to work on the 12.1 homework, which is due tomorrow. Remember, this unit, I will not be taking late homework, so make sure you complete that, turn it in tomorrow. And I should be back at school tomorrow.